I was standing near the kitchen island at a neighborhood dinner party here in Scottsdale, holding a glass of sparkling water and watching a painful social interaction unfold. A guy named Tom, who was roughly my age, had accidentally bumped the edge of a serving tray, spilling a few drops of red wine on the granite counter. It was a completely meaningless accident. The host wiped it up in 2 seconds, but Tom could not let it go. For the next 10 minutes, he followed the host around the kitchen, frantically apologizing, over-explaining how he lost his balance, and shrinking his physical posture until he looked like a scolded child. I stood there watching him completely destroy his own dignity over a few drops of wine, and a very uncomfortable memory hit me. I realized I used to do the exact same frantic, pathetic apologizing. Not at dinner parties, but in my own bedroom. When I was in my late 50s and my physical hardware started failing on me, my immediate reaction to losing an erection was to unleash a flood of panicked excuses. I would apologize to my ex-wife profusely, explain how stressed I was at work, complain about my fatigue, and negotiate for her understanding. I was desperately trying to talk my way out of a mechanical failure. If you are watching this right now, and your immediate reaction to losing your physical response in the bedroom is to start explaining yourself and apologizing to your partner, I need you to listen to me very carefully. I know exactly the kind of hollow panic that makes you want to fill the dead air with excuses. I know the shame that drives the apology. I am going to explain exactly why talking is the absolute worst biological reaction you can have, and I will share the physical, mechanical override I learned to use instead. I promise you, what your body is experiencing in that moment is a chemical lockdown, and you cannot negotiate with your own nervous system. I drove home from that dinner party thinking about the sheer biological cost of insecurity. When I used to fail in the bedroom and immediately start explaining myself, I thought I was preserving my connection with my partner. I thought I was showing empathy. The reality was that I was actively ensuring my physical equipment would not work for the rest of the night. The human nervous system operates on two opposing circuits. The parasympathetic system is your rest and digest mode. It is the only state in which your blood vessels can dilate and an erection can physically form. The sympathetic system is your fight or flight mode. It floods your body with adrenaline to prepare you for combat or escape. Adrenaline is a powerful vasoconstrictor. It literally slams the blood vessels shut to keep blood in your vital organs. When your equipment fails and you start frantically apologizing, your brain registers extreme social panic. It triggers the sympathetic alarm. You dump massive amounts of adrenaline into your own bloodstream. By trying to explain your failure, you are chemically locking the physical valves shut. You are pouring water on a fire you are trying to start. The first concrete thing I had to change was my vocal reaction to failure. I had to learn the absolute power of silence. When the physical response drops, the absolute worst thing you can do is validate the panic by acknowledging it out loud. You must shut your mouth. No apologies. No explanations about your corporate stress. No promises that it will work tomorrow. By remaining completely silent and physically calm, you stop the brain from escalating the panic. You refuse to let the adrenaline spike. When you stop acting like a panicked victim of your own biology, you maintain your masculine polarity in the room. Your partner does not want a weeping apology. She wants a man who remains grounded when things do not go perfectly. Simply closing your mouth and breathing slowly forces the nervous system to realize that there is no actual physical threat in the room, which prevents the valves from permanently locking down for the night. The second shift is the actual mechanical override. It is a biological hack that forces a hard reset on your nervous system when the adrenaline has already started to leak into your bloodstream. I used to lie there in bed sweating, trying to force my brain to calm down. You cannot think your way out of a chemical spike. You have to use a physical shock to change the channel. When the equipment fails, I learned to calmly stand up, excuse myself without any dramatic sighing, and walk into the master bathroom. I turn the sink faucet on as cold as it goes. I run the freezing water over the insides of my wrists for 30 seconds, and then I splash the freezing water directly onto my face and hold my breath for 5 seconds. This is not a gimmick. It is called the mammalian dive reflex. When freezing water hits the nerve receptors on your face while you hold your breath, your brain instantly overrides the panic circuit. It rapidly drops your heart rate and forces the parasympathetic nervous system to take control to preserve oxygen. It acts like a master circuit breaker, instantly killing the adrenaline spike that was keeping your blood vessels restricted. You physically force the panic to evaporate. If the mechanical logic of stopping the apologies and using a physical temperature override makes sense to you, or if you are tired of feeling like a hostage to your own performance anxiety, hit the like button right now. It is incredibly important that we get this specific biological truth in front of other men who are currently sitting in bed, destroying their own vascular response by talking too much. We have to share the mechanics of how the machine actually operates. The third change is what you do immediately after you reset the nervous system. You have killed the panic, but you still need to generate the physical blood pressure to open the pathways. Standing in the bathroom, after the cold water reset, I do a 60-second isometric hold. I drop into a deep static squat, pressing my back against the wall, and I hold it until my legs physically burn. This is a deliberate mechanical demand. By placing the largest muscle groups in your body under extreme static tension, you force the tissue to rapidly consume oxygen. The body panics for fuel and immediately floods the lower half of your anatomy with nitric oxide to force the blood vessels wide open. You are using a massive physical strain to manually pump the hydraulic fluid back into the region. By the time I walk back into the bedroom, my heart rate is steady, my adrenaline is gone, and my lower body is completely flushed with oxygenated blood. I return to the bed feeling physically dense and capable, not weak and apologetic. Getting the silence right, triggering the dive reflex, and forcing the vascular flush completely changed how I handled physical setbacks. It turned a catastrophic failure into a 3-minute mechanical pit stop. But I am an absolute realist about the baseline health of an aging vascular system. A hard system reboot works brilliantly to clear the panic. But if your internal Teflon lining is severely degraded from decades of poor maintenance and your microvessels are too stiff to expand when the blood finally arrives, the physical trick is not going to be enough. I realized that to maintain the infrastructure, I needed specific daily internal support. I refuse to rely on synthetic blue pills that just mask a weak cardiovascular baseline. I went looking for a natural protocol that actually protected the pathways I was trying to use. The daily formulation I rely on incorporates alpha-lipoic acid. This is a highly specific antioxidant that targets the absolute smallest, most fragile microvessels in your anatomy, cleaning out the oxidative rust and ensuring those tiny fuel lines remain flexible enough to dilate when the demand arrives. The protocol also uses epimedium. This compound supports the exact same blood flow mechanisms as the pharmacy options, but it does so by naturally supporting the chemical pathways without the aggressive synthetic spikes and the chemical dependency that ruins your natural baseline. I never tell another man what he should add to his routine, but if you want to look at the exact formulation I use to keep my microscopic plumbing clear and responsive, I put a link in the pinned comment right below this video. You can also simply scan the QR code you see on your screen right now. I spent a long time looking for a clean, logical mechanism that I could actually trust to protect my hardware. Because here is the deepest truth about physical failure in a relationship. Your partner does not lose respect for you because your biology occasionally misfires. That happens to every man who lives long enough. She loses respect for you because of how you handle the misfire. When you frantically apologize, make excuses, and shrink into a puddle of insecurity, you force her to step out of her feminine energy and become your caretaker. You kill the polarity in the room. When I stopped explaining myself, used the mechanical overrides to reset my system, and walked back into the room with calm authority, the entire dynamic with Alyssa changed. The failure lost its power. It was no longer a tragedy. It was just a minor mechanical delay that I knew exactly how to handle. Many men allow a temporary physical glitch to completely destroy their confidence because they tried to solve a biological problem with emotional apologies. They talk themselves right into permanent impotence. You do not have to accept the panic as your default reaction. You own the nervous system and you have the absolute authority to manually override it. Tell me in the comments, have you ever found yourself making endless excuses after a physical failure, only to realize that the talking just made the situation worse? I read every single comment and I know exactly how strong the urge to explain yourself can be. Do not spend another evening apologizing for a machine that just needs a simple reset. The longer you let adrenaline and performance anxiety dictate your physical response, the harder it is to keep the vascular pathways open. Start practicing the discipline of silence and use the cold water override the next time the system stalls. And if you want to give your internal engine the specific cellular support it needs to protect the microvessels and maintain natural blood flow, look at the protocol I use. The link is right there in the pinned comment below, and the QR code is on your screen. Take a serious look at the biological mechanisms of the ingredients. Decide for yourself if the logic makes sense for the exact physical frustration you are dealing with right now. I am Cole Harrison. Keep doing the work.